The restaurant wasn't loud, but it was alive. A low hum of laughter, silverware, and the muted clink of wine glasses. Somewhere near the bar, a saxophone version of a pop song tried to sound sophisticated. The place was called Luca's, all amber lights and dark wood, the kind of cozy atmosphere that promised warmth even if the night outside was cold. Mara sat at a corner table for two. The candle between the plates flickered like it was trying to hold her attention. She checked her phone again. 7:12 p.m. He was 12 minutes late. Her thumb hovered over the message thread. Still no new text. Just the last one from this afternoon. Can't wait to finally meet you in person. The words felt flimsy now, a promise that had already started to crumble. The waiter, a young man with a neatly trimmed beard and an accent she couldn't quite place, appeared again, carrying a practiced smile. Would you like to order a drink while you wait? I'll just have water for now, Mara said. He nodded. Of course. Ice or no ice? Ice is fine. When he left, she exhaled slowly and stared at the empty chair across from her. The folded napkin, the untouched wine glass. It all looked too prepared, too hopeful. She imagined what it must look like to the other diners, a woman waiting for someone who wasn't coming. She picked up her phone again, trying not to care if anyone noticed. Hey, are you on your way? She typed it, stared at it for 5 seconds, then deleted it. No, she wasn't going to beg for an appearance. She wasn't going to be that person. Another 10 minutes passed. The candle sputtered lower. A couple at the next table laughed. The kind of laugh that comes easy when you're comfortable, when you already know the person across from you. Mara caught herself glancing over, watching the way the woman leaned forward, eyes bright, while the man gestured wildly with his hands. Their laughter filled the space hers should have. The waiter returned with her water. Still no guest? He asked gently. She smiled, though it felt heavy. He's probably just caught in traffic. Of course, he said, but his eyes flickered with quiet sympathy before he walked away. The phone screen glowed again. A message. Her heart lifted, then fell when she saw it was from her best friend, Hannah. Any sign of him yet? Mara typed back quickly. No, still waiting. Maybe he's just running late. If he's more than 20 minutes late, you have my permission to leave. Men like that don't deserve your lipstick. Mara smiled despite herself and set the phone face down. By 7:42, her smile was gone. She'd started counting the seconds between the restaurant door opening and closing, her gaze darting up each time someone walked in. Each new arrival was a small spark of hope, until they turned out to be someone else's date, someone else's story. Her water glass was half empty now. The candle's flame was smaller, barely holding on. She began tracing the rim with her finger, feeling the faint chill of condensation. Her stomach tightened with something between hunger and humiliation. Maybe he'd seen her photo and changed his mind. Maybe he'd walked in, spotted her, and decided she wasn't what he expected. The thought stung, not because it was unthinkable, but because it was plausible. She sighed, reached for her coat draped on the chair, and started to stand. That's when she heard it. A voice behind her, quiet, almost hesitant. Sorry. I was watching you from the door. She froze, her hand still gripping her coat sleeve. Turning slowly, she saw him, or at least, she assumed it was him. He stood near the restaurant's entrance, half in shadow, his posture awkwardly uncertain. Dark jacket, hands shoved into the pockets. His hair slightly tousled, eyes wide and soft, like someone caught doing something they shouldn't. I didn't mean to be creepy, he said quickly, taking a cautious step forward. I wanted to make sure it was you. Mara blinked, still too surprised to answer. You were watching me? He nodded, sheepish. For a few minutes. You looked nervous. I thought maybe you'd rather not go through with it. Her first instinct was irritation, that flash of indignation that comes when someone admits to something absurd. But beneath it was confusion, and under that, curiosity. Why would you think that? She asked, slowly sitting back down. He hesitated, then crossed the room toward her table, each step careful, as though the ground might break beneath him. You looked so composed. Too composed, like you were waiting for someone to disappoint you. She studied him as he approached. He wasn't quite what she expected. His dating profile had been all charming smiles and confident angles. But here he was, real, hesitant, his nerves bleeding through every word. "Maybe I was," she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. He let out a small laugh, one that sounded like relief and guilt mixed together. "Well, I didn't want to be the one to do that." "You're off to a strange start," Mara said dryly. "I know," he admitted. "But I figured honesty's better than pretending I wasn't the guy hovering by the door like a stalker." There was something disarming about how easily he confessed it. No excuses, no smooth cover story. Just an awkward truth laid bare. The waiter returned, blinking in mild surprise. "Ah, the gentleman has arrived. Would you both like to see the menu?" "Yes, thank you," Mara said, her tone lighter now. As the waiter left them with menus, Mara watched the man, her blind date, settle into the chair across from her. His hands trembled slightly as he unfolded his napkin. "So," she said, leaning forward, "you were watching me from the door. What exactly were you waiting for?" He smiled a little shyly. "For you to look up. I wanted to see your face when you realized someone actually came." Mara tilted her head, her irritation fading just enough to let curiosity win. "And what did you see?" He hesitated, then said softly, "Someone who still hoped." The candle flickered again, stretching their shadows across the table. Outside, the wind rattled the glass. Inside, something in Mara, something small and tired, began to ease. Maybe this wasn't going to be the date she imagined. But maybe it wasn't over yet, either. The candle between them had burned low, a small flame floating on a sea of wax. The waiter had taken their drink orders and disappeared, leaving a hush that wasn't quite comfortable yet. Mara studied the man sitting across from her, Evan, according to his profile. He looked different in motion than in photos. Softer around the eyes, more human. His nerves showed in the way he adjusted his silverware 3 times before finally setting it down just so, as though control over that tiny detail could make up for the awkward start. She watched him breathe in and out, steadying himself, and thought, "At least he showed up?" "So," she said finally, breaking the silence, "do you usually watch your dates from a distance before saying hello, or is this a one-time thing?" He laughed, a small, self-conscious sound. "Definitely a one-time thing. I swear I'm not usually that weird." "That's what weird people usually say." He smiled, looking down. "Fair." Then after a moment his voice softened. "I almost left." Mara raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "I saw you sitting there waiting. I thought maybe you were too good to be real. You had this calm about you, like someone who didn't need to be on a blind date." She tilted her head, skeptical. "That's a polite way of saying you were intimidated." "Exactly," he admitted without hesitation. "I didn't think I'd measure up to whatever version of me you'd imagined." Mara sat back, considering him. His honesty disarmed her. People on first dates rarely showed their soft edges. They polished themselves, offered only the bright sides. Evan, on the other hand, seemed to be unraveling before her, awkwardly but earnestly. "You could have texted," she said, "instead of making me wonder if you'd fallen into a sinkhole." "I know." His voice was quiet. "I just didn't know what to say that wouldn't make it worse." Their drinks arrived. A glass of white wine for her, whiskey on the rocks for him. Evan muttered thanks to the waiter, then turned back to her, swirling the glass absently. "I've done this a few times," he said. "Online dating, I mean. You talk for weeks, you think you click, and then in person it's—" He made a vague gesture, like something deflating. Awkward silence, forced smiles, both of you realizing you liked the idea of each other more than the real person. Mara smiled faintly. "Sounds familiar." He looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time without flinching. "But with you, it felt different. You didn't talk like you were trying to impress me. You just talked. About real things. I guess that scared me more than it should have." Something softened in her chest. "Unexpected and unwelcome. You know," she said. You could have spared me 30 minutes of wondering if I got stood up. I know, he said again, wincing. And I'm sorry, really, I was being a coward. Why? Because I looked too calm? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Because I've been stood up before, too. That made her pause. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. 3 times, actually. Once I waited 2 hours. The second time she texted 10 minutes before to say she wasn't feeling it anymore. The third time, he shrugged. She showed up, took one look at me and said, "You're not what I expected." Then she left. Mara frowned. That's awful. He shrugged again, though the motion looked more like deflection than nonchalance. You start to build a habit of protecting yourself. I thought, if I waited and watched first, maybe I could spot the disappointment before I felt it. Mara looked at him differently now. He wasn't just shy or uncertain. He was tired in the way people get when they've been brave too many times. So, she said quietly, you were watching me to see if I'd disappoint you. He hesitated. Maybe. Or maybe I just wanted to be sure someone actually came for me this time. Silence stretched between them again, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was something else, fragile, like a bridge being built in slow motion. Mara took a sip of wine, letting the warmth spread through her chest. You know, for a guy who hid by the door, you're surprisingly honest, he chuckled softly. I figured after that entrance, honesty was the least I could offer. The waiter reappeared to take their order. They both fumbled for the menus, trying to appear composed. Ladies first, Evan said, and for the first time, there was a hint of playfulness in his voice. Mara smiled despite herself and ordered pasta. Evan followed with steak. When the waiter left, Evan leaned back, visibly relaxing. You must think I'm ridiculous, he said. I think, Mara replied. You're someone who overthinks as much as I do. He laughed. That's either a great combination or a terrible one. Let's find out, she said. For the first time that evening, she saw him grin, not the nervous half-smile he'd been hiding behind, but something genuine. It lit up his whole face. They started talking then, about everything and nothing. How online profiles never show how someone laughs, how the city feels smaller after a breakup, how both of them secretly hate small talk but do it anyway because silence is scarier. By the time their food arrived, the conversation flowed easily. The candle had burned to a stub, the restaurant had filled with new diners, and the waiter no longer looked at them with pity when he passed. At one point, Mara caught Evan watching her, not from a distance this time, but across the table, openly. What? She asked, smiling. He shook his head. Nothing. Just thinking how weird it is that an hour ago I was debating walking away, and now I can't imagine if I had. She felt warmth rise in her cheeks, unexpected. You're assuming I'd have let you text me later with some lame excuse. I was planning to say I got food poisoning, he said. But now I'm glad I didn't. They laughed together. Not forced, not polite. Real. When the plates were cleared and the check came, neither of them reached for it right away. They sat there, the hum of the restaurant wrapping around them like a quiet secret. Evan broke the silence first. Can I tell you something without sounding like a total cliché? Go on. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table. When I first saw you tonight, sitting here alone, I thought, she looks like someone who's been disappointed too many times but still shows up anyway. And that scared me. Because that's me too. Mara's breath caught, not because of what he said, but because of how gently he said it. She looked at him for a long moment, then smiled, small but certain. Then maybe we both did something brave tonight, he smiled back. Maybe we did. They left together a few minutes later. Outside, the night air was crisp, the city alive with soft sounds, footsteps, laughter, a distant siren. As they reached the corner, he hesitated again. Mara, he said quietly. I'm really sorry I made you wait. She turned to face him. You showed up. That's what matters. He nodded, relief flickering across his face. Next time, I promise I'll walk straight in, she smiled. Next time? He grinned, a little sheepish again. If there's one. Mara looked at him, then at the streetlight above them, its glow catching in her hair. There will be, she said. And for the first time that night, they both believed it.